You're listening to the Crack It Cold podcast, where we interview inspiring individuals and ask them what they do and why they do it. I'm your host, Willie Watley. Be sure to follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter at Crack It Cold, where you can find other creative media projects. Today on Can 1, you'll be hearing from special guest, Waleed Al-Hamed. Welcome everybody. Today I'm joined by Waleed Al-Hamed. The cool kids call him Wally, and he's just got a really great story. I've known Wally for a long time now, I'd like to say. Gotten to really become a good friend. He's been a role model for me, someone I look up to a lot. And, I just want to have him on today, ask him some questions, ask, what you do, Wally, why you do it. Maybe we're going to cover a little bit of mentality, talk about your, what drives you, what makes you you, and hear a little bit about your story. And I'm really excited to do that. So, I'll go ahead and start off by saying, Wally, it takes a special kind of person to wake up in the morning and run.
Oh, yeah.
Some would say that it's almost close to insanity. And Wally, you're one of those people. So I want to know, how often do you run?
So my running journey kind of started way back in late 2018. It started from me just listening to this guy, David Goggins, on a podcast. And hopefully one day you'll have the ability to inspire someone from your podcast, like I was inspired from a podcast. But yeah, David Goggins is just someone exceptional, and he's human. He always says, I'm just human and people are capable of doing what I'm doing, but it's very easy to view him as exceptional. And he was an ultra marathon runner, still is an ultra marathon runner. And it really wasn't the running that captured me only about David Goggins. It was his story too. And in late 2018, I was kind of in a dark place mentally and physically. I've gained a lot of weight. I wasn't really happy with life. I wasn't in the right place. And I needed something that will get me out of that dark hole of sadness and depression. I hate to say that it's depression because I was never diagnosed, but it was very close. Like when you read up on the symptoms, it's really close to what people diagnosed with depression suffer with and deal with.
Very serious. I mean, it's a serious issue.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's sickening. It's very terrible. It's really hard to function as a human when you're suffering from depression. And that's when it started. So in 2018 in November, I was mandated to volunteer at the Monumental Marathon. Shout out to school, shout out to IUPUI, Dr. Jeff Sherman. And we were automatically signed up for emails from the Monumental Marathon. And then a month later, I just started running after listening to David Goggins on that podcast. Wow. And then January 1st.
You took that inspiration and you literally ran with it. Yeah. You literally ran with it. I mean, you just started. You took action and you went after it. And you went after it and got what you wanted to do.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I learned from him how it got him through the hard times. And really, what I really wanted, it wasn't just about health and losing weight. It was about me battling the demons that were inside my head. And David Goggins, the special thing about him, he says he never runs with headphones on or doesn't listen to anything while he's running. So I wanted to kind of replicate that.
So do you listen to music when you run?
Now I do. I listen to podcasts because I do run in the morning, and it's a good time for me. I'm high on awareness, and I would like to learn something in the morning as I'm running. But I just wanted something to help me battle my demons and self-talk as I was running.
Wow.
The first time that I ran with that new mentality, because I was just running, listening to music, just casually running. But the first time I did it, at that point I was like running half a mile, maybe a mile, and then walking a little bit and just trying to pace myself, I guess.
Right.
But then I took out the headphones one day and I just decided I wanted to talk to myself. And the most that I had ran at that point was like 4 miles in a day. That's running and walking, going back and forth between those. And that day I was just talking to myself and in my head, and I ended up running 7 miles and not feeling it.
Wow.
Yes.
And you were talking to yourself. No headphones.
No headphones.
What
nothing.
were you saying?
Really just thinking about my childhood, my past trauma, things that I dealt with. What got me to this moment, and what do I want in the future? Where do I see myself?
That just motivates the heck out of you to just keep on going.
You know, like talking to yourself is a very important conversation. It's the most important conversation that you can have with anyone because you live with yourself, you walk with yourself, you're with yourself 24/7. There is no escape from it. And people do not appreciate that fact. People do not take the time to listen to themselves, the voices in their head. We all have demons in our head. You know, it's kind of cliche how many times it's been said, but it's very true. We all suffer. We all deal with things. So it is important to have that conversation with yourself. And from there, going back to the Monumental Marathon, the emails. On January 1st, I had been running for a couple weeks now. I built up the Goggins mentality or whatever you want to call it. And I got an email about registration opening, and I had an F-it moment. I was like, it's in November 9th, 2019. It's January 1st, 2019. I have 11 months. I've always wanted to run a marathon. It has been a dream that I never thought that I was going to accomplish or have the guts to do it because it's difficult. But I just signed up impulsively. The next day, I talked to my cousin, and he was a big motivator to me. He was like those 2 weeks.
Can I ask you something, though? Yeah. When you signed up, how much time was it until the marathon?
It was 11 months, so 11 and 9
months.
days.
So almost a year that you had in between. Mm-hmm. To prepare and get ready. So you started talking to your cousin. Yeah,
I talked to my cousins, and at the time I was 250 pounds. That was the heaviest I've ever weighed in my life.
Really?
Yes. And that is physical weight and fat and whatever, but the mental weight that I had at the time weighed a lot more. But I talked to my cousin and I tell him like, hey, I just signed up to run a marathon in November. And he was motivating me those past few weeks when I was running and pushing me to keep doing it. And he was like, you know what? I'll sign up to run with you.
Really?
Yeah. Long story short, he ended up not doing it because he got an injury. He got too hooked on running and decided to do 2 mini marathons in 2 weeks in a row and developed an injury, and it was pretty bad. And
went a little too hard.
It didn't make sense for him to run the marathon at the time.
Wow.
But that's kind of my story about how I got to the thought of running the marathon.
Okay, and I mean that's all in of itself. I mean that's a great story, and experiences like this, it will change you.
Yeah,
it will change your mentality. Mm-hmm. And you said yourself you were in a dark place.
Yeah,
and this is something that really brought you out. I mean, it kind of brought you out. And so tell me a little bit about the accomplishment of crossing that finish line. Mm-hmm. I know it's not just a moment in time. It's a moment that defines all of the work leading up to the finishing of that race. So I want to just ask you, what were you feeling?
Yeah. Honestly, crossing the finish line was just proof to me that I'm capable. So my whole life I lived with self-doubt. I'm the youngest of 4. My oldest sibling, my brother, he's what you call an exceptional smart person, what society likes to call these people. And my middle brother is the charming personality, charismatic, very funny, outgoing, and I kind of leached onto him growing up. And then I have one sister. She is kind of the house princess, and she's the heart of the house. And me being the youngest, I didn't know where I would fit in, what is unique about myself. And I grew up with a lot of self-doubt. I had probably the worst grades out of all my siblings. I mean, I was a C and B student, but other siblings were pretty good at school. I never cared about school. I never loved it. I just love the aspect that I get to see people and meet new friends. But I mean, I made it through school. I, at one point in my life, doubted that I was going to make it through high school because, believe it or not, I failed math in 5th grade. Yeah, I failed it first semester of 5th grade, and I kind of bounced back my second semester. But I grew up with all that self-doubt, and to that moment, and that was part of my dark place, is just so much self-doubt. What do I want to do with my life? Where am I going to go? What are my capabilities? And I just wanted to challenge myself with this marathon and see how far can I push myself.
And you did it.
Yes. And is it true what I'm hearing on these podcasts or what I'm reading in these books is that you are capable than more of what you can think? And it just proved that it was true. It was proof that I'm capable of doing something exceptional and great, and it's unique to myself. It was something that none of my siblings were able to do, who awesome. I've always been like jealous of or have had self-doubt because of them.
And Wally, like, that's so inspiring. It really is. It's inspiring to me because, you know, you were on your own journey, okay? Yeah. And, you know, you did these things, but you sharing that with me, I mean, that inspires me. And I mean, hopefully the people that are listening or watching this will also feel a little bit of sense of inspiration. And that whole journey for you, that life-changing experience, it's not just one event. It translates to everything in your life. And Wally is not your average Joe. Wally actually has a lot of experience. He has so much to his story. That's just one piece of it. And I think on this podcast, that's kind of what we want to do, is sit back, crack it cold, talk to you on a personal level. Like, why are you here today? And obviously, you know, that's the side of the story that probably a lot of people don't know. But most of the people that do know Wally know that he's a really hard worker. You know, he came to school at IUPUI and just worked his tail off and volunteered and networked and met people. And that led to great experiences for him. Wally worked for the Final Four. Wally is working for the 2022 college football playoff. He's going to be working for the national championship this year on the Indianapolis host committee. And these experiences are totally due to, you know, your hard work, your ethic, everything that you've done. And that all of these things, you've proved yourself. You've proved yourself again and again and again. And that is why we have Wally on today. So, you know, talk to me a little bit about your journey aside from the race, maybe just career-wise, coming to IUPUI. How did you open up? How did you? What was that like for you?
Yeah. So I moved back here. So let me backtrack on my story. I was born here in Indianapolis. My mom and dad are from Jordan, Middle East Jordan, not the shoes. And we moved back to Jordan. My mom and my siblings moved back to Jordan when I was 6. And then in 2008, my dad came to Jordan to visit us. He was visiting us every year for a few months, and he would be back and forth. But in 2008, he was there for one of our holidays, and he ended up getting a stroke.
Oh, wow.
Which paralyzed half of his body. And I was at the time, 10, 11 years old. And that's really the image that I can remember of my dad. I don't remember a ton of him before that. But that's where kind of my trauma kind of started. Just not having my dad around, not having my dad being capable of supporting the family, because he was our support line. My mom didn't work. She was a stay-at-home mom. And going through that at a young age, I learned from my older siblings that, hey, if you want something, you got to work for it. You always have to put in the effort. And I just grew up with that. I just knew that if I ever wanted anything in life, I just had to work for it. If I wanted a toy, I'm going to have to go work and do whatever I can and buy that toy for myself. So yeah, it just stems from childhood, which I've realized at an older age. I didn't know at the time. At the time, I was just thinking that I was a victim, and I just hated life because I had to work all the time for everything that I needed. And why do other kids get these opportunities that I don't? But now I actually embrace it, and I love the fact that I went through that, because you have to suffer through life. Otherwise, you're not going to grow. You're not going to learn.
Very true.
Yeah. So I mentioned how I had self-doubt, didn't think I was going to graduate from high school, but I moved back here to Indianapolis my senior year of high school, went to Decatur Central High School, go Hawks. And after that, I didn't know what I wanted to do. My whole life, I was being told that, oh, you're going to grow up to be an engineer like your uncle and whatever. My favorite uncle, he's an engineer. And I didn't know if, like, when I was graduating high school, those last few months when it's time to apply for college, at first I didn't know if I wanted to go to college. Second, I didn't know if I really wanted to do engineering. So I ended up just signing up or applying for Ivy Tech. Went there for a couple years. My first semester, I thought I was going to do pre-engineering, and then transfer to IUPUI eventually and do mechanical engineering. That didn't last long. 2 weeks into the semester, I dropped the 2 engineering courses that I had, other than the electives or whatever.
So once again, you find yourself in a situation where you feel like a failure, maybe.
Yep.
I mean, you felt bad about yourself. You're probably self-doubting, because I mean, and that was probably a big struggle. Like your dad, you're at Ivy Tech, you failed your class. Like, that's got to be a low place.
Yeah.
And so what did you do next?
No, it was pretty terrible. In my last year of high school, going through school, my whole schooling from first grade to 11th grade, my junior year of high school, I was in Jordan and developed all these friendships. And they were the few people that I was finally capable of being comfortable in myself, and not the shy kid around his family who's always being quieted down. But then I moved across seas and oceans and miles away back to Indianapolis, and to start from scratch. That was very difficult. I barely made any friends in high school. I made maybe 5 total within a year. I'm not friends with any of them anymore, because again, I didn't have enough time to build a genuine friendship, and they were just kind of there for the time being. And so I went to Ivy Tech and dropped my pre-engineering courses, didn't know what I wanted to do. And then I started reading up on psychology. My middle brother, who I always latched onto, was studying psychology. So I started to build some interest. But then I took one psychology class, failed on a big midterm paper, which it took me a whole week to write a 14-page research paper about depression.
Wow.
And I ended up getting like a 65 on it, and it was bad. Like, I don't know what exactly was bad about it. I don't know if I was like forging half of it or whatever it was. But anyway, so I dropped that class, and I just really didn't enjoy the psychology classes. I took it again because I had to. I needed to fix my grade, and I just didn't really enjoy it. So I started reading books about psychology, and that's where I found more interest, the more in-depth stuff, rather than the lecture and just listening to the professors for an hour or whatever, however long classes are. Can't even remember. That's how much I cared about school. But so I thought I wanted to do psychology, and that didn't happen. But at the time, I've always wanted to coach soccer.
Okay.
I grew up watching soccer and playing it, and I loved the sport, and thought that I wanted to coach soccer. So I got my soccer coaching license online through the USA National website. And I happened to visit one of my high school teachers, who was probably the only teacher that mattered to me. And I talked to him. I told him, oh, yeah, I just got my soccer coaching license. Might think about going to a club.
Now, where did you go to high school?
Decatur Central.
Okay. And so you had a teacher there.
Yep.
And that you knew and you talked.
Yeah. Okay. So I went back to visit him one day and he was like, oh, we actually have a new soccer coach and he was looking for a volunteer assistant if you want to do it. And I ended up doing it. I was there for 2 seasons. Unfortunately, the first coach ended up leaving after that season of me working with him. And then I started again with a new coach. So I was there for 2 seasons. And that's where I realized that I'm truly willing to like put in the time for sports, because I was doing it for free and I cared about it way more than my job.
Servant. It's being a servant. It's being a good servant. That's part of what this industry is all about, is serving others and just putting your best foot forward and doing it and not expecting anything back.
Yes.
But the truth is that you do get things back and you get a good feeling about it. And I'm sure you felt that feeling.
Yeah. And I mean, that's where I started to realize that I have pretty good skills, and like I learned some specific skills about my organizational habits, how I'm good at organizing stuff, and then how I'm good at being a leader. Because all the players would come and talk to me about something personal that they may be struggling with that's affecting their game, why they're not able to practice, why they're not practicing as hard anymore, and why they're not scoring goals anymore. Our team wasn't so great, but like I cared about the players. That's where I learned that I care about people too.
Right. And that's one of the things that, you know, from the time I've known you, is you always have been very caring, always willing to listen, always willing to give advice if that person wants advice, and you're good at it. Like you're good at talking to people and making them feel comfortable. And, you know, it sounds like that's something that you had to develop up until this point. And I think that's really awesome. So, I mean, moving forward, let's fast forward. Like what's happening next after this? You come to IUPUI, you decide to study sports management. Sports management, yep. What was the first thing that happened at IUPUI that really started to direct you towards where you are now?
So I was in Dr. Jeff Sherman's class, which I already shouted him out, but shout out again. And at that point, I was still coaching soccer. I thought I was just going to do this so I can get my higher level of the coaching license. Yeah, because it's part of the curriculum for a coaching license that like you get a degree in sports or something like that. I can't remember what it was exactly. But yeah, I was just going to go through it. It's something easy that I can deal with. I can suffer with sitting through class for a couple hours or whatever. But then...
Not a big class guy.
Not a huge class guy.
I'm not a big class guy.
Yeah.
Quite frankly. I mean, that's sports management. The classroom is right behind us. It's in the city.
Yeah.
That's where the real work gets done.
Yes, exactly. And that's what I learned. I mean, at that point, I really didn't care much about watching March Madness. I don't think I had watched a full March Madness at that point. I don't think I had watched any college football playoff was pretty new there at that point. I didn't watch any college sports yet. Now I'm working like two of the biggest tournaments and games that are happening that could ever happen.
That's another perfect example of what working in sports and what a lot of my peers and myself, I feel like I already understand it, but what everybody needs to understand is that you can't just be a sports fan. It's not about that. And Wally knows that. Like, Wally didn't even watch a full March Madness, and then he ran and helped do marketing for the Final Four. So it's like, it's not necessarily about being a fan. It's how much you're willing to put in the work. That's something that is greater than you.
Yeah. I actually just finished reading a book by Cal Newport. It's called, how am I going to remember this name now? But it talks about how skills trump passion. So good they can't ignore you. That's the name of the book. So good they can't ignore you. And the subtitle is how skills trump passion. And it was talking about that concept. Like, I'm not just passionate about sports. I didn't have passion for March Madness. when I got offered a contract position to do marketing and promotions for March Madness. And well, it wasn't March Madness at that point. It was only the Final Four. And that turned into the full tournament. But I didn't have passion for March Madness, but I had a passion for people. That's why I did it, because I knowing how much it took from me and how much I exhausted myself to reach my goal of like that marathon, for example, how much it took from me. I know these players put in everything just for a chance to play on a court. Wow. And if I am capable of helping someone execute on their goals like that and live out what they've been working their butts off for, I am fulfilled. I'm happy.
Let's stop for a second and just realize what you just said. Because first of all, you've had your own journey, right? You've seen like like what it took, right? And then you started to serve others. Yeah. And then you start to serve others who are also going through that journey and process, like these athletes. Yeah. And you understand and respect and appreciate that process of hard work. And you understand that, and you also care about serving others, so you're going to serve others who also understand that. And it's a respect thing, and it's bigger than you, right? And it's it's awesome. It's really great.
Yeah, that's always been my mentality. I mean, right now I always say when people tell me like, oh, you work so hard, like how do you do it? I always say I want to work so hard. I want to gain so much skills, as much as I possibly can, which I don't think there's a limit to it about how many skills you can obtain, just so I can help the next person. Wow. Just in hopes that someday some person is going to come up to me and ask for advice, and maybe 10 years in the future, 20 years, I see them doing better than me. Because the mentee always has to exceed the mentor. And I just want to see people doing better than me. And honestly, it's a challenge to whoever wants to be my mentee.
That just takes such a special kind of person, though. Like, you know, that's a true leader. That's true leadership right there. Like, you act, and I mean, Wally, I mean, you're 23. Yeah. You just turned 23. Yeah. That's young. And you understand that. It's such a young age. And that's a really, like, I'm 21. And I've been fortunate enough to have these kind of conversations with you. And we're, you know, here we are. We're young guys. We're in the industry, and we can understand like what it takes to be a good leader. Yeah. That's amazing.
Because it's mandatory. In this day and age, I mean, the leaders of the past, all they really cared about was checking boxes, getting numbers, reaching their goals. And they cared about the consumers first. They didn't care about their people who are interacting with the consumers or their customers. And I just want to see that shift of leadership that is compassionate, that is care about one another. And that is my hope. I don't know if I'm capable of doing it by myself, but I hope it's just a trickle effect where I just inspire the next person, or they get inspired by someone who inspired me, and they want to execute on a similar goal or the same goal and become those leaders of the future.
That's amazing. I love it. I love it so much. Now let's I want to talk a little bit about you've written some blogs. You've got a LinkedIn account. You've got Instagram. Follow him on Instagram, Real Wally World.
All one word.
Real Wally World. Instagram. Follow him. If you're not following Crack It Cold, follow them too.
Oh yeah, Crack It Cold.
No, so yeah, follow him on there. Wally posts a lot. LinkedIn too. Both of us are happy to make some LinkedIn connections. It's a big part of networking. But
yeah, one note on that actually. Sorry, before you ask your question, if you're gonna connect with me on LinkedIn, please try to build a genuine connection. That is one thing that I forgot to note on when we were talking about career stuff. I learned that what matters is building genuine connections. So don't just try to hit up people and connect with them, and just for the sake of saying that, oh, I'm connected with this person, or I talk to them. No, connect with someone to the point that if you're walking down the street, or if you end up seeing each other at a restaurant, they're going to say hi to you. Yeah. They're going to stop and say, how are you doing? they're going to know what you're doing.
Yeah.
So genuine connections. Sorry. Back to your question.
No, that's a great road to go down too. I mean, connections, networking, all that. I would venture to say that, this guy's one of the best at it, at networking. He's always, I mean, he got a picture with Jim Irsay at a Colts game a few weeks ago.
Might get in trouble for that, but anyway.
Yeah, that's the kind of guy he is. Like, how you doing, Jim? Want to watch the game together? Oh, wow, that was a nice catch.
It was nothing like that.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't. But that's just an example. Like, Wally's always willing to get a card or, introduce himself, but build and establish a real connection, not just a fake one. Like, you got to have something to say. You can't just walk up and be like, "Hi, I'm Willie."
And you know what's funny? You say that I'm so good at it, but every single time I try to approach someone that I'm inspired by or someone that I know in the industry, I'm shaking.
Right.
I'm sweating.
Hey.
There's a fear. There's a hesitation.
Exactly.
And I don't want to do it. It's so uncomfortable walking up to someone who is like an exec level and trying to tell them about your like little position that you're doing. But what I learned is that in their eyes, it's not little.
Uh-huh. Yeah. And that's another great example is like, Wally, Wally's good at making connections, but he just said he's also afraid sometimes.
Yeah.
I feel that way. He feels that way. I would say a lot of people, most everyone will feel fearful before they go in to do something like that.
Yeah.
But that's just part of the mentality.
Yeah.
It's part of the challenge. It's part of what Wally's been through that he knows it's going to be worth it in the end.
Yeah.
And anything that's hard is worth doing.
Mm-hmm.
Anything.
And it's a level of humility and respect to the person that you're meeting. Yeah. And if you're not afraid of meeting someone so high up and talking to them about yourself and trying to capture their interest, I don't know, you're probably like a psychopath or something.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how you can do it.
Yeah.
There's no way.
Yeah. And went down that rabbit hole, but it was a great thing to talk about. But what I was going to ask a few minutes ago was just talking about your Instagram page and some of the things you've posted. You've posted like some blogs. You've written a few things. I don't expect you to remember them all, so I took the liberty of writing some of them down.
I appreciate that. It's been a couple years.
Yeah. So, no, but I think it's great. I think one of the first things that stuck out to me was don't be jealous. Be inspired. You wrote this.
Yeah.
This was the header. Mm-hmm. Talk to me a little bit about what that means.
I talked about how I grew up with a lot of self-doubt, and like I touched a little bit on the jealousy, how like I saw other kids getting opportunities that I didn't have or didn't get, wasn't privileged enough to have, or whatever it is. And I realized what I was running, because in between the beginning of 2019 when I signed up for the marathon and when I ran the marathon, I signed up for a couple 5Ks and 10Ks and whatever it is. And, there's people who are probably older than me, and being a young person, I was 20 at the time, I think 21. I was 20. And I was kind of jealous of like, how are they capable of running faster than I am? How are they capable of doing more than I can?
Right.
So that's what triggered it. And
the jealousy.
Yeah, there was literally an 80-year-old man that I talked to after I finished one of my 5Ks who was like at the finish line 10 minutes before me. And a 5K is pretty short. And I just talked to him. I was like, how do you do it? Like, he's like, well, I mean, I train every day. How long have you been training? I was like, 2 months. So
okay, there you go.
So yeah, he put in the work for it. So I was inspired that at one point, maybe when I'm 80 years old, someone else is going to be jealous of me because I'm running faster than them.
Mentality beast. It takes it. We said this at the beginning. It takes so much to wake up in the morning and be like, I'm going to run 6 miles. Yeah. Some people, I mean, everybody's got a little bit of crazy in them, right? Yeah. You just got to let it out. You just got to let it out, man. Right?
It's the toughest thing. Most mornings I don't want to do it. I run about 4 or 5 times a week. And I wake up at 5:30. I'm usually in bed between 10 and 11 maximum. Most nights it's like 9:30. I start falling asleep on the couch, and my roommates yell at me for falling asleep. But besides that point, I wake up between 5:30 and 6 in the morning. By 6:30 max, I'm at the door running.
Now let's rewind, because the quote was, "Don't be jealous, be inspired."
Oh yeah.
And so you looked at those guys, those older guys, and you're like, "Oh my gosh, how are they like doing this?" But then you talk to him. He said, "Hey, I've been training every day."
Yeah,
how long
he's
have
been
you
doing
training?
it for his whole life.
And you're like, 2 months. Well,
yeah.
So then you realize that's inspiration. That's not jealousy.
Yep.
Maybe at first it was, but like now you understand that's inspiration. You know what it takes now, so you're going to go do it.
Yeah, and you're only ever jealous of the things that you want to do.
Right.
That's things true. That you want.
Wow.
You're never jealous of something like that you don't want, that you don't want to get a grasp on.
Exactly.
You're only jealous of what you want to do. So why not flip the switch? It's a matter of perspective. Because the way that I look at it,
inspired, not
the
jealous.
way that I look at it, it's one story. You can either be inspired or you can either be jealous, and it's about making a choice. It's making like a conscious choice. Do you want to be inspired by this or what?
I really like that.
Yeah,
that's awesome. Wow, that's good stuff. Really is, because you can look at somebody from afar, be like, wow, they drive a nice car. Oh wow, they have a hot wife. Oh wow, they have a lot of money, or whatever it may be, and you just look at them from afar, and you just think about them like, I want that. Well, why don't you go ask them? Hey,
what did it take?
What did it take to get there? And then and then you're like, wow, inspiration. Then you start to respect that person. A lot of times, I think that what's the difference between jealousy and inspiration? Like, what would you say the biggest difference is? I think once you're inspired by that person, you respect them, you understand. But jealousy is just like from a distance. I see it.
Yeah.
You envy it. You want it. Like,
it's action.
Yeah.
That's the biggest difference.
Action.
Taking action.
Woo. Wally.
You're jealous of something. You want that so bad. Take action. Wow. And then flip it into inspiration.
Yep. I read a Bible study that said thought, action, experience. Starts in your head. What are you going to do about it? I'm going to take action about it. When you take action, it becomes reality. You see it through to the end.
Yep.
That is thought, action, experience right there.
That's exactly how it is.
So let's see. I mean, this is pretty broad. You talked a little bit. Some of the things you said don't focus on numbers was one thing.
Yeah.
You said stop making excuses. That was another thing you wrote.
Oh man.
And then you used two lines. You said this too shall pass and can't change it.
Yeah.
So these are like a lot of things that you've written about, and you've just got some insight on. I'd say, for the sake of time, just pick one of those, and just talk a little bit about, why it means so much to you.
Oh man. So I'll talk about the victim mentality.
Victim mentality.
So, it falls under. Sorry, say them one more time.
Which
what was
one?
The first one you said?
Don't focus on numbers.
No, the next one.
Stop making excuses.
Yes, excuses.
Stop making excuses. All right, there we go. Victim mentality.
Yeah.
Stop making excuses. All right.
Excuses are easy.
Yeah.
You can find excuses wherever you want, and that plays part in like me waking up in the morning and wanting to go for a run or choosing to go for a run.
Oh.
It's so easy to make an excuse, especially these days. It's cold as outside. It is cold. I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
Every single morning that I'm going to go out and run, I don't want to do it. It's dark. It's cold. I don't know. I run on a trail where people have been killed before. And I really don't want to do it.
Yeah.
No, it's actually,
I mean, that's
it's real
true,
because part of my run, sometimes I go on the Monon Trail. Yeah, I go off of the Fall Creek Trail onto the Monon Trail, and it's like down by 25th Street and whatever. And like someone was actually killed there not too long ago. Wow. So,
oh no.
I don't know how I do it. I don't know how I strip all those thoughts out of my head. And I'm literally every single morning, I'm dressing up as I'm thinking of all these excuses. Like, why do I not want to do? What is something that's going to stop me from
Right.
putting on my shoes and going as I'm putting on my shoes? And then at that point, I just stripped down all the excuses.
Yeah.
I gave myself answers for why I should do it. And then after that, I just thank myself for doing it, because it is a complete shift in your mentality. It changes my whole day when I start the morning with a run.
That's true. And it's after the fact that makes you feel so good, but it's so hard in the morning or before you do whatever it is. It's so hard, but you just said it yourself. Don't make an excuse.
Yeah.
Think of a reason to do it. Think of a reason to do it. Every excuse that pops into your head, think about the end result. Nope. Forget the excuse. Why am I going to do this right now?
Yeah.
Because later on, it's going to make me feel fantastic.
What is the word that we used in sales? You're taking sales now, so you should
Objections.
remember. Objections. Yes. How to respond to objections.
Yep.
So I do that with myself in my mind. So, going back to the victim mentality.
Shout out Dr. Pierce.
Yeah, Dr. Pierce, shout out.
Right.
But I made so many excuses in my life to why I couldn't do things.
Yeah.
And I became a victim. So part of it, my dad being disabled since I was 11 and no income coming from him, having to work. And I've always felt like a victim.
Yeah.
I've always blamed people for the things that happened to me. But then at some point, I heard this quote. It was on a Casey Neistat video. I can't remember who said it, but he was saying that excuses are like buttholes. Everyone has them, but no one wants to hear about yours.
Nice.
And that's what I just learned, that like no one really cares. Whatever excuses you have, no one cares, nor should you care about them.
True.
Because, your feelings are not going to matter. Like I said, before I go out to run, I'm feeling crappy. I feel upset that I'm about to go in the cold. I feel cold. I don't want to do it. But after the fact, actually 5 minutes into my run, I realized like, oh, I'm okay.
Yeah.
Like, I'm good.
It's cool.
I actually feel good. I'm glad that I did it. And this is a thing that happens every single day.
I see. Yeah, that's true. And for me, when I run, I think, oh my gosh, I hate this so much. Get me through it.
Yeah.
Well, by the time I'm finished, I'm like, okay. Whew.
Yeah. You get that reward, that kick of dopamine, the sense of accomplishment.
And so, Wally, wow, what a story. Thank you so much for sharing. Like,
of course.
It really means a lot to me. And I'm proud to say I'm not jealous. I'm inspired by you because we've had the chance to talk, right? And I got to hear your story. And this isn't the first time I've heard your story. I've had the privilege of being able to talk to you a lot. And you're always, you've always been there for me for that. So I thank you for that. I thank you for being here today. Thank you for sharing your story. And I really hope that, the people listening can gain a new level of understanding for some of the things we talked about today.
Yeah, and if you guys don't know, Willie is one of my favorite people on this planet. I see him doing big things. I'm proud of him, and I anticipate a great future for him. All right. If you keep working, you better keep hustling.
Thank you, Wally. I really appreciate it. Yeah. That's great. Thank you so much for saying that. All right, guys, we're gonna wrap this one up. Thanks for listening. Have a great day.